still see that.
Hi!
Oh my gosh, special guest today for What Your Friends Won't Tell You. So will you please introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Hannah Thompson. We look a lot alike. I'm sure you could tell. That's my mom.
Yeah, it is Shannon's daughter, Hannah, and who is a student at the University of Florida. What year are you?
Going into sophomore year.
Sophomore year. Okay, so and you're what? 19?
Turning 19 next month.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, okay. So happy early birthday. So we wanted to have Hannah on here to kind of talk about some of the issues that come up for her generation, the younger generation, because I think we've been talking about a lot of topics that impact us. Yes. But she wanted to talk about a topic that I think impacts everyone, and that is social media. It's certainly, I think, harder on young people because that's all you guys knew. I didn't grow up with social media. You didn't grow up with social media.
My phone was this big.
And I didn't even have a phone in college. I mean, we didn't even have cell phones in college. We were like picking up the phone and, that was the only way to get in touch with people and to connect with people. Right. Yeah. It's very different now. So Hannah, let's just talk about, first of all, what are some of the issues that come up with you with social media?
Well, for starters, you develop an addiction to it. Yeah. And you read online that all this dopamine is being released when you're scrolling and liking. And, the first thing I want to do in the morning is spend an hour on social media, scrolling through Instagram, scrolling through Snapchat. So you feel kind of dependent on it. And I hate that feeling of like that craving for, mindless scrolling.
Right. What is that? I mean, it really is. It does
lights up, from a psychological
the
perspective.
Addiction.
Well, yeah, it lights up, just like heroin lights up, if they put electrodes, it lights up part of the brain. Falling in love produces serotonin, norepinephrine, lights up a certain part of the brain. I'm sure if they put electrodes, it's lighting up part of that brain, just like any other addiction, just like any chemical, alcohol, drugs, whatever. And so once that part of the brain lights up, you always want to light that part of the brain up because it makes you feel good, right? Yeah. And so then then remember, addiction is obsessions and compulsions. You obsessively think about it when you're not doing it. You have compulsive behaviors. You wake up in the morning. That's a compulsive behavior. I wake up, I roll over. Some people roll over and smoke a joint. Other people roll over and pick up their phone. You know what I mean? Like
more likely rolling over and picking up their phone.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And we all do it. Sure, it's not just your generation. We all do it. So, it was interesting. We were talking before we started this video, and she said the strange thing about social media is there's so much good to social media.
So it's truly a double-edged sword, and I think that's what makes it so hard to kick. We have all these negative effects of, it lowers your self-esteem, it makes you feel more isolated and lonely and depressed. But then, the easy solution is just delete it. Delete the app, just be done with it. You delete it, and then you lose all the positives of social media, which is inclusion and feeling like you're a part of a community and connected. And it's very strange because I know a lot of my friends will delete it and then they'll feel like lost and completely out of the loop.
Right.
And isolated and alone.
Exactly.
And disconnected.
So it's this cycle of and honestly, I think it's just the fear of missing out. Like FOMO. It's seriously,
I have a lot of FOMO in my life, Hannah.
Yeah. My friends would be posting pictures on Instagram. I didn't have Instagram for like a year. I tried to do like a whole year cleanse. And all my friends were making me feel bad. They're like, "Oh, I wish we could tag you in this post, but you don't have Instagram." And and
shaming, FOMO shaming.
Yes, totally. Right. And it was really hard. Yeah. Eventually, I caved and I got it again because
that was interesting because when I went on the week long, I did a week. I didn't do a year. But I did a week long, no social media, no phone, and I missed that connection. I missed that connection because every morning when I'm on the air, I'm talking to people via Twitter. I'm, connecting with people on Facebook and posting stuff on Instagram, and people are responding, and it's a connection for me. Totally. So I really do understand, you really do want that connection.
But then what just came up for me when you were saying that is knowing that one person that says, "Suzanne, you're this, and this," and attacks you viciously because of one sentence that you say, and then that's a bit of a spiral. Sometimes it can be.
It is. Yeah. It is. Right? It used to be. I've gotten really good at sort of desensitizing myself to those comments and really good at blocking people.
But imagine if you're 16, 17, 18, 19.
And that really takes a toll on your self-esteem.
Yeah. Have you ever experienced any of that?
No, not like trolls or, people, saying degrading things. But I have felt, there's this thing where, it's become like an internet sensation of like, if your photo doesn't get enough likes, take it down.
Yeah, what is that about?
Yeah.
Like, what's the threshold that you have to meet in order to keep it up? It's like 100 likes or something,
Everyone
right?
has their own personal best on Instagram,
Right.
but if you don't feel that validation and acceptance from your peers, you completely devalue something that you may have really liked. You may have really liked how you looked in that picture, but didn't get the likes, so you delete it. I've deleted so many pictures off my Snapchat, off my Instagram. And so finally someone called me out on it. A guy I really liked. It was really cute. And, I posted this like bold.
You know who you are.
Well, I posted this bold selfie on my Snapchat, and then I didn't get a lot of views, and so I started to feel self-conscious, and I took it down. And I replaced it with like a little half-face photo, right? Something a little bit more like meek. And he commented, he's like, "Why'd you take down the bold selfie and replace it with like half your face?" He's like, "What was that about?" And I was like,
Wow.
oh my God, like he called me on it.
Yeah.
Of really it's just this fear that you're not accepted or you're trying too hard
or you make up things in your head. And I remember, I'm so glad you went here because I was going to say it if you didn't, because I'll never forget the day that she came out of her room and she's like, God, I only got 72 likes. I'm gonna get rid of this. And from our generation, I was like dumbfounded. I'm like, first of all, it's a gorgeous picture. You're a gorgeous girl. But because 800 people didn't push the button, you now feel ugly, feel like the picture was bad, feel like you're trying, like we ascribe all this stuff to what it means.
We put all of it on others.
Yeah,
And
what it meant for me is that I just was in a hurry and I didn't even hit the button.
Right.
Right? But what it meant for you is you're ugly, you were trying
good
too hard.
enough.
Yeah.
Maybe it was arrogant of you to be like leaning forward. Oh my goodness, what we do to ourselves.
Yeah, it's true.
Powerful.
As a parent, I really struggle with this because I understand social media. I think a lot of parents maybe don't. What advice would you give to parents that, especially of like my child's age, like 12?
And may I dovetail on that question?
Yes.
Because I know how she was raised. What advice would you give to parents, and what impact did it have that I didn't allow you to go on it until you were in high school? Because you went on it very late because I blocked it.
Oh.
So what do you think that was a positive? Because I'm hearing you now self-regulating, and I'm wondering, are you better and more aware of the self-regulation and more aware of how you respond to the likes because you didn't start until you were about 16?
Yeah,
Right.
I think I got on Snapchat at like 13 or 14.
But Facebook was like sophomore year, and you
Facebook
got
was
bullied into it because you were missing something on classes. So that the question being, what advice would you give to parents, and is it a positive or negative effect
To
how
keep
young you
them,
are on
right,
it? Or
to keep them off of it.
Yes.
Right.
Well, I feel like the younger kids, 8 or 9, they're so impressionable. I feel like that's really, but I can't even speak for this upcoming generation because, for our generation, it was speaking of mine, it was, fairly new and exciting. For these 9 or 10-year-olds, everyone's got it.
Yeah.
Everyone's doing it. So I feel like, I don't know if I would prohibit them because then, they feel like they're,
left
out and everyone else is on it.
Right.
I would just really talk to them about it, talk to them about the effects of it and how to, how to regulate it. And even if they're young enough, screen time and pulling the plug a little bit.
Do you think you were mature enough before 16 to handle some of what came back your way?
Totally.
So how old do you think is mature enough to handle that barrage of negativity that could come, or not getting enough likes, or those kinds of things, so that it wouldn't really affect your self-esteem?
That's a hard one.
I think what she's saying is, and from what I hear you saying is, make sure every kid is different. But I think the important part is not just giving them a Snapchat or a Facebook or an Instagram account, but talking to them about that
and watching the effects.
What the responsibility is, what you expect from them on social media,
what they should expect,
how to handle that negative criticism. It's interesting because I read a study the other day about this, and it was specifically saying, what age is the age that you should allow your kids on social media? And they found that the age didn't matter. What mattered was whether parents had a conversation with those children about the effects, the negative effects of social media, how it could impact them, how to, be careful of people that you meet on social media, that kind of thing. So I think it wasn't necessarily the age, it was more how the parents handled it when they did give them social media. So I think that's really interesting. You know, I want to talk a little bit about, because you have been talking about self-regulating, which I think is so important, because I notice my daughter scroll, and it's not just my daughter, it's me too, you know? So what do you do to kind of self-regulate? I really like the one idea.
So I curated this, you know, technique because I had just been going cold turkey, just deleting it completely.
Your account altogether?
Altogether. Like my account I deleted completely, which, you know, didn't work for me because I felt super isolated. So the thing that I kind of came up with is just deleting the app, because you can easily re-download that app, but it kind of takes away the instant gratification factor. So if I feel myself compulsively go to my phone, I'm like, oh my God, it's not there. So then I have to evaluate, is this a time that I really want to be scrolling through social media? Could I be connecting with other people? Could I be doing something more productive? And there are, in fact, times, you know, I'm waiting in the line at Chick-fil-A and I'm like wanting to scroll and I'm like, okay, you know, I can waste this time, or I'm at a doctor's office, you know, but it really makes you stop and think. So it becomes less of a compulsion and more of an active choice of, this is what I want to do with my time now.
That's very interesting. I had a girlfriend that did the same thing with the Facebook app, because she said I was just getting crazy. Like at stoplights, I would be going through my Facebook news feed.
And you shouldn't do that?
I don't know, therapist. I'm thinking probably not. But she said it was getting, she felt it was making her crazy.
She felt out of control.
She felt out of control. And so she said, I deleted the app from my phone. I could still go on my computer and look at my Facebook when I'm, you know, when I was home, or if I really wanted to, I could go through the Safari app, you know, go online, but then you have to log in. So it's it's evaluating. It's not easy.
It's not, you take the accessibility out of it. But what's crazy too is I feel like it's become, I guess, a crutch, but I feel like it's become like an anxiety reducer for especially a lot of teens. You know, I experienced that. Like, just the scrolling is so like comforting, and it becomes like this, you know, comfort that you try to, and it's right in your pocket. So a lot of times, like, I'll go to like parties or social, you know, interactions, like, you know, where kids get anxious and then they just pull out their phones. Like, we've seen it. Like,
is that a good coping mechanism, Shannon?
Well, I think that what we're looking at here as over all these generations is the losing of the ability to connect in a way that can really soothe your anxiety. Like if I'm at a party and I look around and everybody is not interested in me, then I pull out my phone. Now I've sealed the deal. Now anybody who was gonna come chat with me is not going to do it. So then you come home, it's like self-perpetuating, you know, self-fulfilled prophecy. Then you come home and you go, nobody talked to me at the party. Really? Whereas when I didn't have a phone, we didn't have phones at UF, so we'd be in the corner and then we'd be like, oh my God, I think that girl's in my English class. And you walk over and you go, hey, aren't you in? Oh my gosh, you look familiar. And then she introduced you to her 3 friends, and now you've got a real community that is reducing your anxiety. I mean, that's in a perfect world. I guess you could be rejected, but more often than not, once you make that eye contact or when you make that statement, then you can connect with people. Where I'm blown away. I go to doctor's offices, and my family will validate this. I'm a bit of a chatter, and
you're my mom. My mom talks to everybody.
Talks to everybody.
I'm like, sissy.
Yeah, I talk to everybody. But the problem is, you know, so I'll go into a doctor's office, everybody's like this, and so then you can't connect. And a lot of times I will purposely leave my phone and just wait for that moment where there's eye contact. And some people don't want to be bothered, and I get that, but sometimes they'll look and then they'll be like, oh, you know, I like your shirt. Where did you get it? And it's a beautiful thing. And I know before phones, you know, your father used to make fun of me, but I mean, on planes, I was on one plane trip to Philadelphia, and on the way up, I found my best friend, her husband, because I sat next to him and chatted him up from the minute he sat down, and they're married now 20 years. And on the way home, I got us Dolphin tickets to the Miami game, because the girl sitting next to me was like beautiful. She was so intimidating. I was thinking, oh my God, I'm going to be so uncomfortable if I don't befriend her, because she's a supermodel. And we became buddies, and by the time we got home, she's like, my husband's got tickets. They invited us to a game. Dad and I went to the game. Like, so even though he makes fun of me and people make fun of me for talking to everybody, look at those 2 connections. I mean, literally, my best friend is married to this guy 20 years that I met on a plane.
Right.
You know what I mean? So these kinds of connections I feel like we miss.
Yeah, and you know, the same thing we were talking about this, you know, if you're single and if you're, you know, how many times are you on your phone and missing that opportunity of that
another issue.
cute guy that,
It's an entirely different issue.
Now you're in the grocery line and you're on your phone, but there's a cute guy right ahead of you. Why don't you start talking to him, you know?
Well, the issue now is that we're using our phones to make those connections with, you know, people we're interested in. We're using Tinder and Bumble and, you know, it's just interesting. It's a different.
Do you think it's better or worse?
I mean, it's a personal preference again. I think that I would want something to happen organically, and I get kind of intimidated by that.
Yeah.
And the expectations that come with a Tinder date or like you know, like there's a lot of
pressure
attached to that, as opposed to something that just happens naturally and just kind of evolves into what it evolves into. Like when you're, you know, matched on a date, like you don't know what that person's expecting. You don't know them. It's just a different world. Some people love it. You know, makes people more accessible, but it's interesting.
I find that the technology in and of itself is extremely anxiety producing to my generation because somebody was saying the other day, like you mentioned the other day, you know, you're going out of town, you might have to go study when you're out of town, you'll just get an Uber. When I was growing up, I was not allowed to ride with people that my mom hadn't met 11 times.
Oh, right.
Knew what kind of driver they were, like knew their background, met their family, and knew they were driving a safe car and they've been driving for at least 2 years. And now we're putting our kids
in strangers' cars.
In strangers' cars.
So, I mean, it's like, so fascinating with the anxiety. Like for me, that increases my anxiety in some ways, but then yet now you guys are not drinking and driving, so that's a positive.
There's always,
so it's interesting with technology, this thing where this double-edged sword, and I know even, you know, I'm not going to pick on you, but like inappropriate things that happen on social media. So it's great at connecting people, but then it's also some inappropriate people, teachers, whatever, can use it in a negative way, and it's just like, it's very interesting, this double-edged sword.
Yeah, and she was talking earlier about, you know, the Instagram models, you know, which people are now claiming to be regular people, but their posts are clearly not regular. I mean, with the perfect bodies and, you know, the perfect hair and the perfect makeup and the perfect photo taken by the perfect photographer, you know, and it's not real.
Yeah, and it is their job to look good.
Right.
Like that is literally what they're getting paid for.
Right.
And so
you know, I find interesting too. My daughter has been doing this, which I had to have a conversation with her about, was posting things. For instance, like giveaways and those kind of things, like that were, you know, they're just meant to be spread and not necessarily giveaways, but for instance, there was this thing: if you don't post this, copy and paste it in your Insta story, you know, your mom's gonna die. Your mom's gonna die in a car accident.
We used to call them
chain letters. And so my daughter was posting those things, and I'm like, Lane, like that's not real.
You need to stop.
And not nice. We used to call them chain letters. Do you remember chain letters?
Yes, I do.
In our day, we would get a letter in the
Yes.
mail, and it would say you have to make copies and send it to
20 people,
20 people, or you're going to die, or if you do it, then you'll be rich, or something bad could happen. And I used to throw those out too. It made me mad, you know.
And now they're chain messages.
They're chain messages. Yes.
Yeah, very interesting. Well, anything else that comes up for you with social media? I mean, this is really eye-opening. I love that we're gonna bring you in all the time.
Well, I think
I'll be scooted out.
We'll be like, okay.
Shannon Jones.
Well, something that's super cool is like meme culture, which, you know, our generation is obsessed with memes and GIFs and like vibes.
Oh my god, I do not know what a GIF is. I have to just be honest. I was so excited that I knew what a meme was. And
It's like a little short video, but it like repeats the motion.
Oh gosh.
And then it has like a you know, something.
Yeah.
You said something like "shut up" or "ha," you know.
Gotcha.
That's a GIF.
Thank you.
GIF.
Okay, I thought it was peanut butter. I'm good.
Well, it's that too.
Meme culture has become like a basis of connection. I feel like for my, you know, age group, you know, we'll be out with my friends and we'll reference a meme and it just like fits perfectly in the conversation, and you form like it's like kind of low key. It's been like the foundation of one of my friendships, you know?
Right.
It's just tagging each other in memes. And
Yeah.
and I mean, I have seen nothing wrong with that. So,
Yeah.
you know, that's kind of like the...
And it's funny.
Yeah.
There's a guy I follow on Instagram. It's called Yogi Memes,
Mm-hmm.
and all of the memes are about yoga, and I just crack up. Now, if you're not
Yeah.
a yogi, you probably don't get half of
Right,
them.
right.
But I really find them funny.
It's just really unifying.
It is.
Yeah.
So there's
Starting
good
to
and
look
bad.
up Zumba memes.
You know, I think this is interesting. This just came up for me, and Shannon, you can probably talk about this too, is, you know, we always think, you know, when we get to, you know, our 30s or our 40s or we have children, we always think that generation is totally screwed up.
Yeah.
You know, they're horrible. They're all addicted to their phones. They're never gonna do anything with their lives, you know. And so we always say that
About the generation.
before us or our children's generation. But I really think like every generation has their
thing.
stuff.
And if you
Yeah.
were placed in the same circumstances, you
Right.
probably wouldn't have acted any differently.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I have to use this opportunity to stand corrected because I'm sure I've been like millennials, you know. But the reality is what we saw with the shooting at the high school in Parkland. You want to talk about some fierce individuals
Yes.
who fought for what they believed in, rallied, went to Washington, and used social media to spread things, to make things go viral, to get to 1 million, billion people all at once. So I think just what you're saying is the absolute truth, that we all have our strengths and our weaknesses, but this group of individuals is fierce, and they use that double-edged sword.
media.
They're
Yeah.
smart,
Tools.
and they use the tools, and unfortunately those tools are also used with the porn epidemic and things like that in a negative way. But given the right avenues, these individuals are fierce, and they're every bit as smart, if not smarter than we were, and they use these means to make a difference, and it's impressive.
And they grew up with instant gratification.
Absolutely.
You want something, you
You
have
get
it
it.
immediately.
Yep.
You know, in this day and age, it's like you get things. I mean, Amazon. I order something, I have it the next day. So I think that is a beautiful thing, even though it sounds instant gratification. That is a beautiful thing when you're trying to get something
Change.
done.
To make
Right.
a difference.
Today.
I want you.
Yeah.
Oh,
No
you're
more guns
telling me
today.
You're telling me that Congress, I have to wait, you know,
Yeah.
to get it through committee and through the
Right.
House, you know, and all this stuff. Like they're like, oh no,
Yeah.
we're gonna get this done
We're
tomorrow.
going
right now.
exactly.
Yeah. So
Yes.
that is that
It's
is
impressive.
the beautiful thing about
Yes.
it.
Very proud of them.
Well, Hannah, this was very eye-opening.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for
Thanks
joining
for
us.
having
If
me.
you have any questions for Hannah, you can leave them in the comment section. And don't forget, we're on podcast. So you're on podcast. You're on the What Your Friends Won't
wow.
Tell You podcast.
Yes.
You can listen to us. Just search What Your Friends Won't Tell You in your search engine on your podcast, on iTunes, Google Play, all the different ones. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel.
And if Hannah would be willing, you know, she's here with us a few more weeks. So if there's a topic, if you are 19
and you want Hannah to talk about it.
something,
Yeah.
we
Oh my
would
gosh.
love that. And I'm sure
She'd
you
come
would
back.
too.
Yay! An official member of the What Your Friends Won't Tell You team.
Yeah.
All right, guys, don't forget to give us your show topics. And if you have any topics you want Hannah to talk about, please let us know. And we'll see you back here next week. Have a great day.
Bye.